شجر ودواب وإنسان. قال تعالى: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ألم تر أن الله يسجد له من في السماوات ومن في الأرض والشمس والقمر والنجوم والشمس والقمر والنجوم والجبال والشجر والدواب وكثير من الناس وكثير حق عليه العذاب ومن يهن الله فما له من مكرم إن الله يفعل ما يشاء.
And every creature praised Allah in its way, and everything praised Him, glorifying Him. And this scientific fact about mountains' shape and function, man could not reach it as a known fact. Only after the huge scientific and technological developments that occurred in the last period of human life, human from ancient times knew the mountains and lived in their sides, and dealt with and benefited from them and their components, and knew the mountain as anything that erected from the earth and extended to exceed the hill in height. Over time and with man's progress from century to century, man was captivated by mountains, and what attracted him to them was their benefits, and he just knew them superficially until the beginning of the 18th century, when he began searching in mountains' origin and formation in the early 19th century through geological survey and geological studies, until he discovered that there are extensions for these huge mountains inside the Earth's crust for deep distances, and that these extensions are either of the same material as the protruding mountains or more intense than it. In other words, there are roots for these mountains that extend below them, down in the ground, and each prominence on Earth's surface has an extension that penetrates the rocky crust on the Earth with 1 to 15 doubles of its height above the surface of the Earth. In the mid-19th century, one scientist assumed that the Earth's crust and its mountains are just islands floating on a sea of high-density rocks. And as a result for that, it is a must for the mountains to assure firmness and stability on this more intense material, to have the roots we mentioned. And the Holy Quran directed humans to that fact through the holy verse, and the mountains as stakes. However, the knowledge of this fact was not available in the past centuries that preceded the modern scientific researches, so this magnificent verse referred to the mountain's true shape and its hidden root that extends beneath it in these two clear words. And these roots enabled the mountains to stand on the crust of the earth, and that was mentioned in the Holy Quran when the Almighty said,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أفلا ينظرون وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت.
As science developed, mountains' root subject moved from theoretical stage to reality thanks to Allah. And through the knowledge of the inner geological structure using seismic measures, which revealed that the solid earth crust, which we live on, is just a very thin layer compared to the lower layers with higher density. That is called the mantle. Then researchers of geology have discovered the fact of Earth's crust balance, despite the mountains and hills and valleys it carries, and that this balance is only achieved through extensions of the crust within the mantle, which can only represent the role of stakes, and the installation of a tent on Earth's surface to ensure its stability. And these extensions of the undersurface roots are directly proportional with the structure above the ground. They are shallow roots in the swales and deep in the high mountains to provide the stability on this land, which the Quran referred to it as a residence.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
أَمَّنْ جَعَلَ الْأَرْضَ قَرَارًا وَجَعَلَ خِلَالَهَا أَنْهَارًا وَجَعَلَ لَهَا رواسي وجعل بين البحرين حاجزا أإله مع الله بل أكثرهم لا يعلمون.
And to this balance and stability, the Book of Allah pointed out in more than 10 verses by the word encourages, which means mooring the land in the mountains with its miraculous concise before more than 40 centuries ago, when the Almighty said,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وألقى في الأرض رواسي أن تميد بكم وأنهارا وسبلا لعلكم تهتدون.
The holy verse confirms that the mountains are anchors and stakes that form a factor of balance and stability for earth. Various trees, grasses, flowers grow on these mountains, and anything that grow on the mountain environment and other similar plants known on earth.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
والأرض مددناها وألقينا فيها رواسي وأنبتنا فيها من كل شيء موزون.
Most of the Quranic verses refer to what man doesn't know about mountains' role and function and the stability and firmness of the earth to become buildable. It is also a way to stabilize earth in its rotation around its axis and around the sun. After mountains emergence and stand high, the erosion factors begin to erode their peaks, and this process continues until the stake emerges from semi-molten layer, and these stakes appear with what it contains from good natural components that only form under high pressure and heat conditions. When mountains are formed, they form at the edges of continents to to stabilize the continental plates at the seabed and ocean bottom, like the Red Sea ranges that extend through the eastern desert of Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. As the ocean bottom widens, we find that there is a very deep trench formed at convergence of ocean floor with continent. In this deep trench gather large amounts of sedimentary rocks. When the bottom of the ocean descends, these sediments melt due to the high increase in temperature, which helps volcanic activity that leads to the formation of volcanic islands that rush through the cracks of the seabed and ocean bottoms. In addition to the formation of fire interactions, so we find strange activity among the three types of rocks: fiery, sedimentary, and transformed. As a result of this movement, a mountain chain eventually form, which instills the continental plate and the substance of the ocean bottom until the movement completely stopped. Thus it was mentioned in the word of Allah that descended on His Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, in His Almighty saying,
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم.
Allah Almighty did all that